Welcome to Audiorama on Delectora. Make yourself comfortable, listen and enjoy this audiobook. Think good things and it will be given to you. A transformative journey of positivity and manifestation. With Conny Méndez's timeless wisdom.
The deepest truths are within the reach of anyone over 10 years of age, who has an average intelligence, as long as they are presented in a simple way, and with practical applications to everyday life. This is especially true when dealing with philosophy and metaphysics, in a format accessible to their understanding. They contain a treasure of teachings for the achievement of a prosperous, happy, and secured life, against all the current evils which afflict the human being. But the technical phraseology is beyond the comprehension of the common person. It would seem that the great thinkers and masters, far from feeling the desire to share the treasure with the majority, strove to hide it behind rhetorical barricades and special jargon. I do but copy the rules of my teacher, Dr. Emmett Fox, in attempting to make intelligible, albeit in a condensed form, such metaphysical treasure, by presenting it in the terms of everyday and ordinary life. Nothing that appears here is a new whole, has been noted since Enoch, which the Bible traces back to the sixth descendant of Adam. Jesus spent his hidden years in the Essene monastery of Cumber, where he was educated according to the teachings of Enoch. Later, in the controversy that was established between Jews and Christians, all the texts of Enoch were collected and burned by both sides, except for a few copies, which managed to hide some individuals. The Christians of the first centuries wanted to erase any indication that the teachings of the teacher were of Jewish origin, and the Jews repudiated Jesus, and destroyed everything that could identify him with them. The authorities of the Christian Church made adulterate and mutilate their texts, where it appeared that the teaching originated in Enoch. The result of this was the New Testament, which leaves in the dark the bottom of the truth. The monastery also perished by the destruction, but the Essenes were able to rescue their valuable library, which they hid in the caves that are in the process of discovery, and called today, of the Dead Sea. The Rockefeller Organization has located a large establishment in the region, dedicated to authenticate and translate the scrolls that are appearing, including the originals of Enoch, and the authentic texts of the Bible. Dynamic Christianity teaches that before embarking on any task, the candidate must receive instructions, or study the technique necessary to carry it out. However, the human being is the only one who sets out to live without a compass, without a definite plan, relying only on secondary materials, and without notions of basic preparation. In this way, he ventures into a labyrinth, hoping not to fall into evil. There are lives that pass between opulence and satisfaction, others pass in misery. The former begin with all the advantages of education, science, medicine, religion and all the provisions, which affection and fortune can devise, but they are pursued by a shortcut of calamities. What is the reason for this collection of differences? The first law of creation is as follows: what you think will manifest itself, not only in your body and your character, but also in the exterior, in the material, in your conditions and in what happens to you. Your own concept is what you see happening. If you have formed the concept that health is the natural state of man, you are of a healthy constitution, whatever you do. If your concept is that wealth is inevitable, you will always be rich. If you consider that your destiny is poverty, accidents, death, the infirmities of old age, bad luck or good luck, you will either be a victim of evil or deserving of all the best, constant struggle or effortless fulfillment. Whatever you normally expect, or whatever you count on, for better or worse, that is the condition in which you live, and which you will see manifest. You are never aware that most of these concepts are formed involuntarily when you ignore the laws of creation. These constitute the compass and the raw material, with which a child should be equipped, before learning the alphabet. With what you have read so far, you will have realized that man is not what has always been believed, a cork in the middle of a storm, tossed here and there according to the waves. His world, his circumstances, and everything that happens in his life, are creations of him and no one else. He is in charge of ordering. If his concept of life is that he is in a storm, and he is a cork in the middle of it, so be it, for he has ordered and allowed it, he is the king of his world. That is what it means to be born with free will, free to choose to think positively or negatively. Your whole life, all your achievements or failures, all manifestations, depend on the concept that you have established in your subconscious. Today we know that what we often think, passes to the subconscious, and takes root there acting as a reflex. Psychology has proved it, metaphysics and philosophy go even deeper into this dynamic, although, as I mentioned before, they present it in such a complex and confusing way, that it is almost impossible to understand it. When the poor human being is involved in the effects of his ignorance, when he has produced some calamity that tortures him, he turns to God, and begs him to deliver him from suffering. Daily experience tells us that sometimes God attends, but sometimes he does not. When God does not attend, the poor human being is consoled by his relatives and friends, with the following words: "We must resign ourselves to God's will, as if God's will were bad." Jesus himself said, "Peace on earth to men of good will." Which leads us to question whether God would enjoy his heavenly peace with impunity, if he were full of ill will. Prayer is of extraordinary power, because it is of a highly positive degree. It is directing thought to the very source of good and love, and there is nothing higher. It must manifest the good instantaneously, it must transform in sight as a miracle, that which needs to be transformed. The first fundamental law of creation states that a person's concept of God governs his life. If someone perceives God as a capricious tycoon, full of ill will, who sends trials and punishments rather than rewards and benefits, that person will experience the manifestation of that divine concept. It is as simple as it seems. So why does this happen? Some wonder if God, being all-powerful, does not intervene to prevent certain events and situations from occurring. Because God is principle, the unbreakable principle. Unbreakable means that it does not vary. Neither can they interfere to break the other principles, which he has created. If he created you with free will, he is the first to respect it. You choose your concepts, your opinions, your desires, your thoughts, you give your orders, and he is the first to consider them. If the human being of whom we speak raises his mind to the divine plane, which is but another way of saying that he prays, if he seeks to calm his anguish and strives to think positive thoughts, then he will witness the miracle he seeks. This happens because he has turned away from the path, he has surrendered his problem to God, that is to say, to the plane of love. This is called faith. You will have seen that faith is a system, a way of acting. Faith has two names, faith and fear. The two are one and the same thing and one and the same force. It is called faith when you hope for the good, it is called fear when you hope for the bad. That's it, as simple as it sounds. When you feel fear, you are foreseeing something bad, that is, anticipating it, waiting for it with all the strength of your soul, and it does not wait for you. You are calling it, and it has to answer because you send it. When it occurs to you that you are fearing, you usually announce with a triumphant air, "Ah, I already knew it, I sensed it." And of course, you are right. But now you will see that it was not going to happen inevitably, and that your higher faculties or your evident endowments announced it to you. Compensation created it, attracting what was necessary for it to manifest. Every thought that is accompanied by a feeling manifests more quickly, and with greater force. This is part of the first law. Fear is a powerful feeling, and that is why everything that is created, through the combination of thought and fear, is so frightening. Traffic accidents, which produce death or disability, heart attacks, cancer, stomach ulcers, and so many other atrocities that afflict ignorant humanity. Undoubtedly, I see you thinking about the material causes of all these things. I see you protesting inwardly, because it has always been given importance to the material cause, for example, germs and microbes that cause many diseases. But it is that these viruses and germs are but effects in turn, and not the causes. The original cause is in the mind, the germ is but one link in a chain, the disease is the link that follows. I am trying to lead backward, and not forward, in the order of creation. The material cause is an already finished product, the basic original design is thought. Everything else that comes later on the outside, is nothing more than the material available for the realization of the work. Do you understand me? Faith and fear are like two sides of the same coin. On one side is fear, and on the other is faith. Faith is a positive force, while fear is negative. No one fears that something will happen, if he does not consider it bad. Thought accompanied by faith is powerful, and it manifests quickly and strongly. Just as one can learn to fear, it is also possible to learn to have faith. It comes through knowledge. By learning to employ the machinery of faith, all fear disappears. You know that the capital of your country is in such and such a place. You have that knowledge because you have been taught it by those who know it. You do not doubt it, and you know that if you take the train, the plane or the car to go to the capital, you are going to the capital, and not to the moon. For that is faith. You have faith that the capital exists, and that to deseo or to necesidad take you to it. You have faith in reaching it, you do not fear reaching the moon. Knowledge banishes doubt, faith banishes fear. You know, then, that negative thinking produces an effect they call bad, and positive thinking produces the effect they call good. You know the danger of accompanying danger with fear. Those bad results, effects of negative thinking and fear, are the so-called punishments that churches and good people have believed to be commanded by God. Do you realize the magnitude of the error? Jesus said, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Here is expressed in a capsule all the above explanation, thought coupled with feeling, think in heart, and the lower case phrase, so is he. It encloses everything in one chapter. For man and his world are one. Man and all that he reproduces, externalizes, manufactures, possesses, and gathers in his environment are one with him, and he, together with all that is enumerated, is an exact reflection of the image he has seated in his soul. Solomon said even more clearly, "As thou thinkest in thy soul, so art thou." Proverbs 23:7. The mechanics of thought, all day and all night, we are thinking an infinity of different things. It passes through the mind, a kind of constant cinematographic film, but disconnected. Among so many different ideas, we stop one or another, we contemplate them mentally, we think about them, we possibly discuss them with someone, and then we go over them again. Later, these ideas become mental images. The mental image is what passes through the subconscious, settles there and returns, what psychologists call a reflection. Psychologists study nothing but reflexes, which govern behavior and mental aversions. Metaphysicians cover a much wider field, and know that reflexes govern not only man, but also everything that happens to man externally. The more we contemplate or study an idea, the more deeply its reflection will take root in our subconscious. The subconscious does not make distinctions or reason, it simply fulfills its function. It does not have the capacity to protest or will of its own, nor does it understand humor, nor does it differentiate whether what we have ordered it to do is serious or a joke. Its main task is to store mental images, and then project them outwards, as if they were photocopies. It is like a printer, which prints what has been stored there. It is like a robot, a wonderful server, which frees us from the task of remembering and putting into practice everything we have learned since time immemorial, even since we were a drop of water in the ocean. It functions as an exceptional secretary, archivist, and librarian, since it does not keep any files other than the mental images that we provide it with. Once we give it an image, it begins to reproduce it at every opportunity, for the rest of our lives, until we give it the order to change it for another one. It is like a printing machine, printing what we have stored in it over time, and it continues to do so as long as we are alive. For example, you will remember the first time you heard mention of a cold. You can't remember, you were too young. The news came to you from your elders, and so you didn't question it, you accepted it as a matter of course. Then they taught you to fear it, and warned you of the causes of the cold, and told you that if you got cold sweat on your little body, if you came in contact with a cold friend, if you got a drizzle, or if you got into a draft, you would inevitably get a cold. You saw all that in your mind with dots and details, it went to your subconscious, and you did not have to remember anymore the warnings that your elders gave you. You never thought of them again, but your subconscious faithfully reproduced a good cold, the best it could produce, every time your body got cold, every time you got in a draft. Every time you were approached by a cold, and every time you got a little cold. You never had to think about it again, but your subconscious has never forgotten the order. To this day, you are still very pleased, and like a gift giver, you still get a great cold every time you are careless. Because you are used to taking care of yourself, you even tell your friends the story, "I can't stand a draft," just as you tell them, "Run away from anyone with a cold." Just as you say, "Don't come near me because I have a cold," and you even call it, "my cold." All of which renews and reaffirms the order given to the subconscious, as if it needed it. This mechanics is the same for all other ailments that afflict the human being. From cold to death, accidents, struggles, old age, poverty, bad luck, moral ugliness, sins, cataclysms, wars, monetary crisis, enmities, and so on. Men vary, but the process of reproduction is always the same. The law that I am explaining to you is called the principle of mentalism, and is the first law of creation. This is the mental universe. This is what metaphysics means when it says, "All is mind." The laws of creation are 7, the truth of being. Happily, we are not obliged to endure eternally the punishment of an ill-formed concept. We are free, and if we want, we can change it for another, which produces satisfactions, rewards and blessings. In the same way that the old image was produced, the new one is produced. We only have to erase the old one first, we have to vacate the place to inhabit it with the new image, just as we erase a wrong letter in a written word, to replace it with another one or to eliminate it. Experience has determined the technique to follow to erase everything undesirable, which is the following: whenever something unpleasant happens to you, think, and then repeat aloud, "I do not accept it, I deny it, I reject it." Don't get upset. Do not put emphasis on what you say, just say it calmly, with the faith that should give you, that your word is an order, which has to be fulfilled unconditionally. At that very moment, you may not see the change taking place in you, you may not see the immediate result on the outside, unless you are very attentive to the small signs. But according to the degree of faith and conviction that you feel when you formulate the refusal, so will be the result. If your faith and conviction are strong, the result will be instantaneous like a miracle. Experience has taught us that you cannot leave the gap empty or half empty, you must immediately fill the empty space. When you finish expressing the negative, you have to affirm the truth, as it is said in metaphysical language, the truth is the new image that will be engraved, and will reproduce the good eternally. We are interested that this image is the best possible, that it is the whole truth and not a semi-truth, that it constitutes the will of God, because God is the truth and the good, as Jesus taught. In man there is God, in every man there is the divine being. Every man is able to see, know and feel him sometimes, in the course of his earthly life. It is the one that emerges in a father, when he is introduced to his newborn child, when he falls in love for the first time, when he throws himself to save another, who is about to fall under the wheels of a car. When he feels compassion in the face of another's misfortune, when he forgets himself to undertake a heroic act. In all these moments the divine being acts. After this moment, the earthly conscience takes precedence, which is not bad, only lacking in evolution or asleep. The divine being is the truth, yours, mine and everyone's. It is someone perfect, beautiful, does not age, does not get sick, does not die, does not suffer, does not fight, does not lack to learn, knows everything. He never fails, never changes, never fears, never doubts, and is attentive at all times, to our most insignificant prayer. It is the perfect truth, it is love, intelligence, life, truth, soul, spirit and principle, that is, the 7 phases of God, because the divine being is a child of God, a cell of God himself. This is not pantheism, man is not God, just as a drop of sea water is not the sea, but in a single drop of sea water, you find all the components of the rest of the sea. It is a cell of the sea. As our consciousness is dormant, restricted, like a rosebud that opens little by little, we do not know how to determine exactly what is good and what is truth. We would like someone to indicate it to us, to teach us and to dictate to us the image that we must record. We have that someone in the divine being. Jesus said, "Know the truth and it will set you free." All you have to do, when you go to form a new image to replace the old one, is to remember the divine being, just remember him instantly. He inspires the new image. Suppose you feel cold, following the original example, you already understand that it is a result of the image you have engraved in the subconscious, and you know that the cold is just a reflection. If you don't like the cold, because there are people who enjoy illnesses, and it makes them feel important, you simply deny it, reject it, don't accept it, and then remember your divine self. By transferring your thought from the cold to the truth of being, it plugs just like a plug in a telephone board, into the corresponding truth. And you see the new image that you must engrave, the opposite image to the disease, which is life. I am life, you must say out loud, I am life. Life is health, health is the opposite of disease, health is the only truth. Extend yourself along that path as far as you want to go. Remember that you are forming an image. The more you see it, the better for you. Think the good. This is very different from autosuggestion, because the latter only consists of repeating like a parrot an optimistic stereotyped phrase, always the same. Autosuggestion only explores the surface, without penetrating the subject, and without knowledge of the cause. The truth of being reasons, investigates, resolves, penetrates and destroys the cause, cleanses, heals and renews the subconscious, fortifies it, advances the human being and broadens his consciousness. It is a true safe and radical cure, it is a safe cure for defects, effects and sins, because these are also reflections and engraved images. The original sin, you will see, is nothing more than the concept, that is, the image that causes the reflection. The churches believe that it is man's fault, although the divine being lives permanently in the environment, which we call heavenly. It is the environment of good, do not forget it, for this is also the purest truth. The more you identify yourself with this environment, the more you will reproduce it in your exterior, in your daily life. The sensation that is most similar to what the children of God should feel at all times is the one we feel when we receive a magnificent gift. When we give thanks for a present that fills us with satisfaction. We feel something, it is a mixture of joy and tenderness, isn't it? Well, that is the state of the one who dwells in heaven, and that is the character of the divine being. When one is in this state of mind, evil departs, for it cannot stand that climate, it does not like it, it does not suit its nature. Therefore, the third step which experience has taught us to take, in the practice of the truth of being, is the following. When you have finished doing what metaphysical language calls a treatment, that is, denying and affirming, always thank God, as if you had already received the prize. Close your treatment with an expression of immense gratitude for the good already received. This is a manifestation of faith. St. Paul said, "Faith is the evidence of things not seen," and Jesus said, "Whenever you pray, believe that you receive, and then you will receive. This treatment is written and expounded in the Bible. Of course, in biblical terms, so symbolic and covert, that it has taken the consecrated work of experts in semantics, linguistics, classical philology and symbology, to unravel the meaning. The Bible calls it Manasseh and Ephraim, and has much to say about these two brothers. Jesus the Christ taught it in the following way: whoever wants to attain eternal life, let him deny himself and then follow me. He did not mean follow the man Jesus, but the Christ. The word Christ comes from the Greek Christos, which means the anointed one, that is, the Son of God, the truth in the New Testament. As I said at the beginning, my endeavor is to put in simple terms, at the level of a being older than 10 years, and of ordinary intelligence, the meaning of metaphysical, philosophical, psychological and religious treatises, which are very obscure to most, and therefore, forbidden and despised in their entirety. Although they are a priceless treasure, nothing I am expounding here is new. Everything is said, discovered and taught since the earliest times, it is just ignored or misunderstood. In any treatise on biology, you will find it laid out in technical terms, what I am now going to describe in simple words. When you frown and wrinkle your face, a reaction occurs in the lower cerebral medulla. Together with the fluid from the spine, it infiltrates the liver after having passed there, by means of a process they call osmosis. Once it has entered the liver, it transforms cholesterol into bile. Bile alters your mood, making you bitter, and this bad mood makes you wrinkle your face and frown. It is a vicious circle that keeps you in a hellish climate, in which evil is at ease, feeds, and grows. It attracts everything of its kind that is floating around. Now, let's reverse the process to see what happens when you feel your brow furrowed and your face wrinkled, or when you pass by a mirror and see your expression. Force yourself to smile, and relax those tight muscles, you owe it to your health and your soul. Immediately, the cerebrospinal fluid is transformed, and when it reaches the liver, it acts as a bath of grace. You feel happy, joyful, you breathe deeply, your expression sweetens, you are in a heavenly climate. Evil does not prosper there, it flees from it. Nothing but good happens there. You choose to live in heaven or in hell. As above, so below, so below, so above, so said Hermes, to explain the second law of creation, which is called the principle of correspondence. For our purposes, it is enough with the example I gave you in the previous 2 paragraphs. You will see that the body and the spirit complement each other, they have to walk together, and act together. We cannot dissociate them. If the human being is happy, he is serving the divine being. If man is unhappy, he departs from the divine being and, therefore, he is not serving God, since the divine being of every man is a cell of God, that is, the Son of God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and was made flesh and dwelt among us. Thus began with the apostle his gospel. Until now, it had been believed that the Word could be none other than Jesus Christ. The first 14 stanzas of his gospel were written by John as a lesson and as a metaphysical statement, to prepare his mind for what he was going to say, so that everything would be in accordance with the truth. I have summarized the stanzas, so as not to lengthen these texts unduly. The affirmation has no connection with the gospel itself. The verb signifies what the word is, but expressed in the poetical and grandiloquent terms, which were so much in vogue at that time. The word is the spoken thought, and in that sense John employed it, summoning the truth, to speak for him in his words. Became flesh, was the decree for him to manifest himself, and dwelt among us, is the reaffirmation of that decree. At the same time, it is a formula for prosperity. In the beginning, John was intimately illustrated, by the master of Christian metaphysics himself, and we are amazed at how well he was able to express the process, which is indicated by the phrase, "He became flesh and dwelt among us." Besides that, in one fell swoop, it affirms faith. Faith is the evidence of things which are not yet seen. The whole Bible is a poem. Jesus said, "By your words you will be condemned, and by your words you will be justified." Clearer cannot express the same truth. He also said, "It is not what goes into his mouth that defile a man, but what comes out of his mouth, for what comes out of his mouth proceeds from his heart." Another clear way of expressing the same truth. He said this to the Jews to refute their belief that it was wrong to eat certain things, such as the belief of eating in the company of Gentiles. However, none of this has been taken seriously by the churches and the people. Unforgivable in the priests, they continue to talk nonsense, not realizing that every word they utter is a decree that is manifested in them and in their lives. And especially that the will of God is something unpleasant and hard to accept. I propose that you resolve one day to pay attention to everything you say during that day. You will be surprised by the amount of negative decrees that will come out of your mouth. Let's remind you of some of the ones that most people use every day. Business is bad, things are very bad, youth is lost, traffic is impossible, service is unbearable. You can't get service, don't leave that money there because they're going to steal it, bandits are robbing on every corner, you're going to fall, you're going to kill yourself, you're going to break that glass. I'm so unlucky, I'm so unlucky. I can't taste that, my rheumatism hurts me, my allergy, my headache, my bad digestion, that one is a bandit, that one is a wretch, etc., etc. Once the decree is pronounced, it proceeds to manifest itself, and all that is a lie, in the light of the truth of being. All that is said by habit, without even thinking about it, because from the heart, proceeds all that was recorded with the word and the feeling, was accepted by the thought. Of course, the images are already, what is called, metaphysically crystallized, in the subconscious to come, from many previous lives. At the beginning, your consciousness will not grasp the possibility of reforming everything, but by winding the rope you get to the thread. It is enough with an ounce of goodwill, it is enough with the desire expressed or simply felt, to start or undo all the crystallization. It is enough that every time, that you find yourself expressing a negative thought, deny it, reject it, and say that you no longer accept those concepts. Then, see the truth of being. Give thanks with all your soul, for the sublime opportunity you have been given, to cleanse your subconscious and heal your soul. In one fell swoop you have confessed, repented and forgiven. For confession and forgiveness are only valid in front of oneself. Then, if you are Catholic, you can comply with the precepts of your church if you want to. But the first person to be forgiven is oneself. There are people who never forgive themselves for having failed in something, and therefore, they hate themselves. That is pride and revenge. By what right do they seek forgiveness from another? Jesus said, "A man out of his evil treasure brings forth evil things, and out of his good treasure he brings forth good things." Love your neighbor as yourself. This implies an authorization to love yourself first, and your neighbor second. To have respect and dignity for oneself, to accept oneself as one is, without excessive demands, and to understand that to fail is human, and to forgive is divine. First, to pronounce the word of truth for oneself, in order to be able to pronounce it for others. The word is the spoken thought, then it is governed by the first law of creation, which in the classical texts is called the principle of mentalism. I have already explained this first law to you in the first 4 chapters, and I have finished developing it in this one. I inserted an idea of the second law of creation, that is, the principle of correspondence, in the previous chapter, because the laws all intertwine and depend on each other, and at that point it was appropriate to expose it. The vibration, the dictionary defines the word, vibration, as a rapid tremor. Most people believe that only sound comes from vibration, but everything vibrates. Vibration is measured by its speed. That is, by the number of oscillations, which occur in 1 second of time, and the way to express it is, this vibration has a frequency of a number, that is, this vibrates at such a frequency. Among the colors, white is the meeting of all the colors seen in light. It is the one that vibrates at the highest frequency. Black is also the gathering of all colors, although seen in shadow, and has the lowest frequency of all, that is, zero frequency for our understanding. Thoughts emit vibrations, which spread in all directions, just like the waves that form in water when a stone falls on it, and they have color. Negative thoughts are dark, and therefore, vibrate at low frequencies. People call them black thoughts, and rightly so. Positive thoughts are luminous, and as they approach the truth, they become brighter and brighter, until they become radiant, when they express the absolute truth, which is God. High frequencies dominate low frequencies. Thoughts of high truth dissolve dark, low, false thoughts, acting like a charge of dynamite on a rock. This will make you see what happens when you put the thought and the word of truth to an accumulation of dark crystallizations. That is why I told you, that it was enough with the felt desire, to begin to undo the accumulated crystallizations, in the subconscious. There are people who have developed the evidence. We all have this faculty, but most of them have not developed it. They know the thoughts by their color, and as they know the external result of each type of thought, they can predict the future. They see clearly the inevitable product of each person. Thoughts of love and goodwill are iridescent pink, thoughts of sexual passion are fiery red, thoughts of life are yellow. That of intelligence is what they call today, chartreuse, very luminous, those of mysticism, are iridescent in deep violet. When there is negativity mixed with these colors, the tone becomes dirty. For example, in the person whose intelligence is still undeveloped or brutalized, the color is mustard. Sexual passion, when it is not understood, and is guided only by animal instinct, is reddish-brown. Mental vibrations form an ovoid aura around the body, and in that aura, you see the whole composition of colors, emanating from the individual thought. The subconscious clean and positive, produces a multicolored luminous work, as the east of the pearl. As the high frequencies dominate the low frequencies, no negative thought coming from outside, can penetrate an aura and a positive environment. So that they could penetrate in the mind of an individual, this one would have to be put in tune with them, that is to say, it would have to be put to think in negative form. The law of attraction is immutable, and it mandates that everything attracts its equal. The images that are engraved in the subconscious, irremissibly attract everything of the same kind, and repel everything that is not related to them. That is why if the concept of the individual is good, he sees nothing but good, since he cannot attract what is not equal to his concept, nothing bad can approach him. And conversely, the individual who is full of closed concepts, only bad things happen to him, because it is not possible for him to attract anything else. That is the explanation of the so-called panic contagion. Have you noticed how, when you immerse yourself in meditation, or turn over in your mind some incident, such as a bad experience or an offense received, you feel how indignation and resentment increase? Now you understand that you attract similar thoughts, which come to increase the volume of your emotions, those you already know. It is as if the related thoughts join and strengthen, generating a spiral of negativity, which can affect your emotional well-being. It is important to be aware of this process, and learn to direct your thoughts towards a more positive and constructive perspective. This law never allows itself the luxury of entertaining your mind with a single unpleasant idea. When thinking it, it rejects it, compares it with the truth of being, and immediately thinks of something good. I hope you have realized the need to keep laughing, living in the celestial climate. Think good and it will be given to you, due to the law of attraction. As a thought leaves the mind, it seeks out its fellow man and joins them. There are in the atmosphere great masses, like clouds, of thoughts. If the collective concept of a city is pessimistic, the clouds are dark gray, hover over the city, surround the inhabitants, go wherever they are attracted, keep the entire population in the same concept. And to this is due the character of the different nationalities and races. Has it ever happened to you that when you enter a house, you feel the atmosphere heavy or cheerful, and it seems to hit you when you enter? Have you noticed the mortuary or sad atmosphere of a funeral? Have you felt the oppressed mood when you walk through an empty house, without understanding why? Not long ago, I was accompanying a friend in the search for an apartment. Upon entering one that looked very nice, very elegant and apparently very convincing, we both had a very unpleasant feeling, and we commented on it. The next day, we were informed that a series of tragedies had occurred there. Positive-minded people lighten the atmosphere, the black masses flee far away and then return, when the one who disturbs them is no longer present. If a trained metaphysician contacts such an environment, he leaves a lasting benefit, for his presence alone destroys the darkness, just as the night dissipates when a light is turned on. Where does the darkness go when the sun rises? Nowhere, it becomes light. The person who has already succeeded in transforming his concepts, who has already formed the habit of consulting and connecting everything with the divine being. It is someone who has the power to destroy the crystallizations of others, just by thinking the truth in front of the bad ones, who incur in others. This is the explanation of the cures and miracles of Jesus. The commandment to love your neighbor as yourself does not mean that we are obliged to feel affection. Forgive your enemies, do good to those who persecute and hate you, turn the other cheek. All this means that as we watch evil enter into another, we must think of his divine being, and declare the truth, simple, plain and easy. There is no more practical way to dissolve any resentment we may have. Many times we hear people exclaim, "I forgive, but I cannot forget." If you are one of these, try what I have told you. You don't need to address the person who offends you, you don't need to look at him or her. It would be much better not to look at her, because you would not be able to take your thoughts away from what she has done to you. Simply, think of the divine being of yours, as it is one and the same in everyone. Turn to this one, and instantly you will know what treatment you should give. That is to say, you will come to mind the aspect of truth, which you must invoke against hatred and inharmony, love against disease and the threat of death, life against stupidity. Intelligence against disorder, principle against absurd barriers, arbitrary boundaries, legal prohibitions without logic. Of which I will quote you some, so that you learn to use the truth well. Passport inconveniences, document delivery delays, transit hassles, bureaucratic red tape, political and governmental inconsistencies. Against all that, remember that the Spirit is divine, God is Spirit. Who holds back, delays, prevents, prohibits or opposes absurd barriers to God? What is it that prevents the Spirit from passing? All this is the truth. Thought that turns to truth, vibrates at the highest of frequencies, and no lower frequency can dominate it. There is only one danger, to allow impatience or anger to mix with a thought of truth. All spiritual work must be done calmly. My teacher demanded even more. He recommended that all spiritual work be done as one paints a picture on a spider's web. This is because the vibrations of spiritual thought are of such high frequency and such great power that they must be handled with great delicacy. Vibration is the third law of creation. The vacuum does not exist, and in this century, it is being proven more than ever. The air is full of atoms and dust particles. The atom is half spirit and half matter, because it is the beginning of this, spirit because it is invisible, and it is energy. The atom is on the verge of division, between matter and spirit. The nature does not support the emptiness, it leaves a pot of earth unattended and forgotten, and in a short time, it will have sprouted in it a green spikelet. The same happens with a container of water, it will not take long to show tiny larvae of life, in agitated movement. Nature does not tolerate waste either, everything is in the process of becoming useful. Everything serves for something and for someone, and everything has its own exact place. Every human being comes to earth, with a place already arranged for him, with a job to do, equipped with a special talent that disposes him to work, and to the position that belongs to him. Just as each fingerprint is unique in the world, and in all the history of the earth, each individual is also unique. His supposed place or place is only for him, no one else can perform the work like him. If the place that corresponds to him is momentarily occupied by another, both individuals will feel disappointed, uncomfortable, and will be doing wrong what they are performing at the time. The work that corresponds to each one of us, whether in commerce, in the arts, in literature, in religion, in government or in agriculture, is very easy to determine. Each one is able to know his unique place, is in that which he likes to do in the world, that which does not seem work, and when one is doing it, he forgets everything. To the point that he considers it absurd to be paid for doing it, when he is having so much fun. This is in accordance with the second law of creation, that is, the principle of correspondence. If you are a misfit, look for that unique thing in you, that you love to do. Declare that your place is waiting for you, meet with people of your affinity, go to the place you like the most, and ask your divine being for light, to tell you where to find it. The same thing you should do when you see someone without a job, or without purpose in life, declare the truth for him. Declare it by saying, unemployment is a misconception, disharmony is a product of disharmony, emptiness does not exist, disorder does not exist, neither does waste. This is a universe based on order and harmony, among all its parts. When something is needed, from a screw to a husband, from a spoon to a sum of money, from a place to park the car, to a good and honest cook, whatever it is, declare the truth. Nature detests emptiness, inharmony and mismatch, so you will see the complement appear in some way. Someone lacks what you have too much of, and someone has too much of what you lack. Supply and demand is a part of the fourth law of creation, it is the principle of rhythm. A young man consulted me in this very sense, he was losing all placements, and was mismatched everywhere. I am good for nothing, I don't do anything well, he told me. What do you like to do? I asked him. Nothing, he answered me, I like to do nothing. And why do you lose all the placements? Because they bore me, and I start chatting with my coworkers. I distract them, and they waste company time. Then, your coworkers find in what you converse to them, something worth listening to. Well, yes, they also forget about time and work. Well, let's look no further, I interrupted, if what you talk about, in the way you expose it, exerts such magnetism, you are sent to work in a public relations position. Look for it until you find it, it is waiting for you. And so it happened. When I found it again, it radiated fullness. I am remembering the truth that Jesus was referring to, when he said, look at the birds of the air, they do not sow, nor reap, nor store in barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Look at the lilies of the field, how they grow, they neither toil nor weave. Yet, I assure you, not even Solomon, in all his glory, was clothed like one of them. This does not mean that we are allowed to indulge in laziness, and that food and clothes will fall to us from heaven. What it does mean is that everyone, in his proper place, will have everything he needs without work or effort. It is not up to the birds to sow, nor to blind, nor to gather in barns. This only corresponds to the man who finds his greatest pleasure in it. The purpose of the birds is to maintain the flying species and its contribution to the angelic plane. In the life of the human being, its mission is to recreate the sight and hearing. Flowers, on the other hand, are not meant to work spinning cloth, their mission is simply to bloom. In addition to beautifying and recreating sight, they also provide honey and pollen, to complement the work of the bees. The higher mind takes care of the rest. Thus, each of us in our natural place, we are in harmony, we are happy and we fulfill the utility, which has been entrusted to us. The higher mind completes the law, and is the right of consciousness. We have lived hundreds of lives prior to the one we are living now. We were an atom, we were a drop of water, we were vegetable, mineral, animal and man. In our human stage, we have been man or woman many times, we have belonged to all social levels, and in each of those levels, we have learned the lessons of that level. If today we are people who live surrounded by the advantages, comforts and modern advances, it is because we have deserved it in our trajectory. Every object we own, by inheritance, purchase or gift, we have it now, because in some previous life we learned to use it, and we got used to it. The image of that object is already a reflection in our subconscious, and unless we ourselves dissolve it, the object we will always have it with us, that or another like it. This acquired right is called in metaphysical language, the right of consciousness. It means that it is never possible to lose, nor is it possible to be stolen, any object, neither a jewel, nor money, absolutely nothing. How can an image that is engraved in our subconscious be lost or stolen? It is not possible. It is part of the fourth law of creation, and Jesus said, "Do not store up treasures on earth, where thieves steal and moths destroy. Lay up treasures in heaven, where neither moth can destroy, nor thieves steal." The general belief is that this means that we should collect virtues, and despise earthly possessions. But this is not so. The teacher expounded the law in these words, adding, "For where your treasure is, there is your heart." We already know what he meant by the word heart. Moreover, the phrase, as he said it, "For what is in your heart, is your treasure." That phrase was mistranslated and adulterated, when they passed it from the Aramaic language, in which Jesus spoke, to the Latin language. When an object is misplaced or lost from your possession, if you remember that you have it by right of conscience, engraved in your subconscious, and that this image is unshakable, you can make the object appear again. Someone will return it to you, you will find it by yourself, or you will receive a similar gift without any effort. From now on, the object will return to your hands, because you know and apply this law, do not forget it. Do not be anxious or afraid of thieves, thinking about it becomes positive, and you cannot be approached by someone with the intention of stealing. I recommend you to do the test the next time you lose something. Declare the following: nothing that is mine by right of conscience can be lost or stolen. Then, give thanks for the immense gift, which has been conferred upon us in such a wise law. When the object returns to your hands, which will not be long in coming, give thanks again. My teacher used to say, that the one who knows the law of the right of conscience, and practices it until he forms his concept of it, can leave a high denomination bill in the middle of a busy street, and no one would see it. The next day, he would find it again in the same place. For which, it is necessary to have the concept already formed, and the image of fear of thieves, completely dissolved. I know that the first time I used the law, solely out of obedience, and without having the conviction planted in me, I was in New York, and I left my glasses forgotten in a cab. On reaching home, I realized that I had lost them, and coming from metaphysics class, with the teaching fresh in my mind, I instantly declared the truth. Nothing that is mine by right of conscience can be lost, my glasses will come back to me. They are in their rightful place, in front of my eyes. For days passed, and I was called from the counseling, to go down to talk to a cab driver who was looking for me. "Ma'am, would these glasses be yours?" he asked when he saw me as he extended the glasses. "Yes, they are mine," I replied. "How did you think they were mine?" "Look at what a strange thing, what has happened to me. As cab drivers, we have to deliver to the office all forgotten objects, in case the client who left them claims them. I could not decide to deliver these glasses. Since all the routes we make are written down in the office, every day I set myself the task of visiting every client I drove that day. I had to do this after hours, of course, and that is why it took me 4 days to find you. This has never happened to me before. Then I gave you a good reward, and it stuck the law. At that time, without my glasses, I could not see clearly and could not write. The rhythm of my life was interrupted, and this minimum detail altered the rhythm of a series of other things, which affected third parties. The universe is based on order and harmony between all its parts. Polarity is a universal law. There is not a single desire of yours that you cannot fulfill. Everything that you consider impossible to obtain, that which you judge too good to happen to you, is precisely what you desire most in the world. The desire is in the bottom of your heart. The only thing that does not let it emerge is fear, doubts, and negative decrees, which you constantly make. To change this situation, change the pole. Until now, you have been acting fixed in the negative pole. Switch to the positive pole, in the following way: declare once you have finished using the negative concepts of the past, that today you are a new and different person. That you claim your good, that you desire it, and you are waiting for it to start manifesting right now. Declare that you no longer want to live in the environment of evil, but in the environment of good. Declare the truth that, by virtue of your desire and your word expressed right now, you are already living in the positive pole, and refuse to accept any doubt about it. Now, when you desire something, practice this form of expression. You should say, I desire such a thing in harmony for the whole world, and if it is the divine will, thank you Father because you have already heard me. In this way we avoid causing inconvenience to others, because our lives are interconnected, and what is good for you, could be harmful to another. Let me give you an example. You and another person desire the same unique object. Instead of competing, aligning your desires with the general welfare, you will receive what you seek, either that same object or a similar one. You will be guided to the place where you find it, and no one will have been harmed in the process. By adopting this attitude, we align ourselves with truth and divine wisdom, promoting balance in our aspirations, and respecting the welfare of all. In this simple example, you are seeing the object, but in many other circumstances, it will not be a tangible object, but something that you believe is only your concern, when in reality, it may alter the rhythm of others. Never crave for something that someone else possesses. It is not necessary to deprive anyone to satisfy our desires. Whatever you may crave, already exists in your own wealth. Claim your own good. Many times we strive to achieve something, and then, we regret having obtained it. This is because what we have desired, obeyed a mere whim. Therefore, we should always desire or ask, according to the will of the Father, so we are sure that what we manifest, is what will satisfy us. The blessing is powerful. You can test yourself by trying the following: put two plants next to each other, water them both every day, but choose one of them to bless and praise. Say many nice things to it and love it. Take care of the other one, but don't bless or praise it. You will see the result yourself. When you are faced with unpleasant or adverse situations, do not stop, pronounce at once, it is for the best. I bless the good it contains everything. When you bless it, its power increases and materializes. That which seemed negative, is transformed into a great blessing and happiness, since you will have turned it into a positive experience. Do not bless people, bless the divine being in them. Do not bless a sick person, bless the healthy organ, which is manifesting a lie. Bless the health and truth in it. You must be very careful never to express something that goes against others. The law says, do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. That is like a boomerang, and it does not forgive. What you do to another is returned, and then they will do it to you. If you wish evil on another, it will happen to you. If you slander or criticize others, they will slander you and criticize you. But if you bless another, you will find someone to bless you. If you help another, you will find help when you need it most. If you forgive, you will be forgiven. Rhythm is a pendulum. When someone hurts you, don't bless them. Bless their divine being, mentally tell them to do you good, and then think of something else. Thus, when you do something, with no intention of hurting or annoying others, it will go unnoticed and no one will feel it. When you are irritated by a majo, bless an unknown angel in him. You will see that he will give you good news or useful information. If you wish not to be interrupted in your work, declare the harmony of your being. It is not harmonious to be interrupted, and God is present in that work which, at the same time, is untimely. It is not possible that God is divided in two, and that both parts are antagonistic. The universe is thus conformed, everything arises from the masculine and feminine principle. Thought is masculine or positive, the soul is feminine or negative. Now is when you can understand what at first would have confused you. The thought, in order to manifest itself, needs to be united or married to a feeling. The soul is the seat of emotions and feelings. I have almost not named the soul, because it is the study that has occupied too much the attention of men. The soul is that phantom, which sometimes appears and frightens, but it is also the seat of emotions. The soul of man dwells in what is called the astral plane, surely you have heard it called a lot. The forces that govern this plane are called psychic. It is the realm of phenomenal experiences, such as spiritualism, mediumship, and certain magnetic manifestations, and so on. It is a very pleasant plane, very distracting, very interesting, but sometimes also frightening. Few of those who dedicate themselves to study it, dazzled by its mysterious manifestations, stay there. They advance neither spiritually nor materially, even though they all live under the illusion of being in the truth. No student of the astral plane is ever happy, healthy in body, or rich. They are unable to master their problems and defects, their concepts are negative, and they see evil like the rest of the ignorant. By their fruits you shall know them, Jesus said. To solve their problems, you will see them consulting with the souls of the dead, running to consult people who read hands, throw cards, and predict the future. These spirits or incarnated souls are always of the same degree of evolution, of the one who calls them, because you cannot attract, but what is equal to their own consciousness. Generally, the advice they receive is contradictory, according to the opinion of the spirit who is imparting it, and they lead their victims from confusion to disaster. Psychic persons, students of the astral plane, try to astonish others with their mysterious knowledge, which they are rarely allowed to reveal. The psychism ends up driving them crazy, because without the guidance of the divine being and the truth, the astral plane becomes a labyrinth with no way out. Jesus referred to this plane when he said, "Wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter by it. For the gate is strait, and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it." The narrow gate, which nevertheless opens to the breadth of life, looks towards the divine being. For by looking at the good, good is produced, and by looking always at the shadow, nothing but a shadow is manifested. By their fruits you shall know them. In Genesis, in chapter 30 verse 30, we find this axiom, by their fruits ye shall know them. This teaching is illustrated in the following story. After having served Laban, his wife's father, for many years with efficiency and loyalty, without receiving any reward, Jacob asked his father-in-law for a salary. Laban asked him, "What do you want in return?" And Jacob replied, "Separate from your flocks, all the striped and spotted goats, and all the speckled goats. These shall be for me, together with the offspring that have stripes, spots, or speckles." Laban accepted the deal, and separated the goats and billy goats, as Jacob had requested. Then, Jacob cut sticks of poplar, hazel, and eastern plane tree, and peeled slats of wood on them, so that they showed the white underneath, contrasting with the dark bark. Then, he placed these sticks in the watering troughs of Laban's cattle. Every time the cattle drank water and saw the rods, the calf they bore came out spotted, striped and splashed, just as Jacob had requested. Thus, his herds increased in an extraordinary way. It is important to note that this story is not a moral lesson, but to expose the law in the biblical way, that what is seen is reproduced. The astral being is human, the human soul is the one that graduates to the astral plane, and it is the one that attends the spiritual sessions. It still retains its concepts intact, and does not know how to see or judge otherwise, but according to what it sees. You who are searching for the light, and who perhaps are a member of some sect or order, of those that are called spiritual, observe the fruit of your teachers and leaders. They suffer from sickness and infirmity, they die of tuberculosis or cancer, they live on alms or demand certain contributions, or condemn money. Often, they suffer from slander and persecution. By their fruits you will know them. They completely ignore the meaning of the basic laws. Their concepts are as wrong as yours. What can they teach you? They hold lofty titles of supreme authority. Jesus said, "Call no man Father, for there is only one Father, who is in heaven." They are still living in the remote past, in the pre-Christian era, when the fashion for men was the robe and mantle. Their ideas are in that era, they have not advanced a step. They restrict the freedom of action of their disciples, they prescribe some foods or impose others, they ignore the teaching of the one they claim to follow. It is not what goes into the mouth that defile a man, but what comes out of his mouth. They have no notions of any science. What kind of teacher is the one who ignores the principle of vibration, third of the laws of Hermes, the best known and most popular, of the enlightened of antiquity? By their fruits ye shall know them, means by their problems, their ailments, their poverty. That is, by their manifestation, you will be able to judge what are their concepts. Their books and texts emphasize punishment, threat, danger, inspire anguish and fear. The 23rd chapter of Matthew, the evangelist, transcribes the words of Jesus concerning individuals, calling them false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inside, they are ravening wolves. And he repeats, by their fruits you will know them. One does not pick grapes from thorns, nor figs from thistles. There are sects that radiate kindness and love to others, their intention and goodwill are unbeatable, but show a great ignorance of the basic principles of creation. Some people do not eat meat, alleging that the animal flesh soils man with its impure vibrations. They have no knowledge of the nature of these vibrations and their frequencies. You know that pure thought cannot receive the impure, and in fact neutralizes or transforms it, as light does the shadow. One of the few ways for the animal to advance rapidly in its evolution is to serve man. When the opportunity to serve presents itself to an animal, the spirit that governs its entire species shudders with joy, because as one member of the group advances, so do all those who come behind, towards the human plane. The animal nature of man requires animal food in all carnivorous degrees. The big fish eats the little fish, until the time comes when man is guided by his divine being, and then the desire and need to eat animal flesh automatically disappears. It is not necessary to force it, you cannot, it is contrary to the universal plan. Excesses are normalized by simply looking at the truth of being, more often. The more rudimentary the consciousness, the more sacrifice is needed to advance. The man who is forced to kill an animal for the benefit of a community, far from committing a crime, provides a better opportunity. Within the animal kingdom, the law of the lower worlds prevails. When a human being kills a ferocious beast, which threatens a community. For example, by killing a poisonous snake, which endangers the lives of children, by eliminating pests that damage fruit trees or plants, or by eradicating pests, which invade homes and torment people. It is not committing crimes, but benefiting everyone, both humans and animals. Animals have no conscience, they only possess the instinct to reproduce. Vermin, for example, following their law, spread too much. Man has the duty as an elder brother, to watch over them and control them. When man attains spiritual consciousness, he no longer has to kill or attract any pests. Rather, to chase them away from his house, it is enough to talk to them, and to address the spirit that rules the group. I myself have witnessed such a miracle. I have seen an advanced metaphysician get rid of some cockroaches and mosquitoes, which entered his house. The metaphysician said, "Brothers," referring to the spirits of the group, "watch over your pupils, they are in disharmony. My house is not the appropriate environment for them." Then, speaking to the little animals, he said to them, "Go away, you little critters," and before my astonished eyes, these pests remained motionless for an instant, as if they had received a message, and then they ran away in terror. The members of the sects we mentioned, ignore everything you are hearing now. They are struggling in the astral plane, or rather, in the negative phase of the plane, because like everything in creation, it has its two phases. The soul is astral, and is the seat of the senses and emotions. Without these, life would be worth little, because we could not feel or appreciate art, beauty, or music. The difference would be that of the old silent movies, compared to the modern, with its colorful sound and amazing technique. The senses and emotions must be cultivated, as a talent is cultivated, because they are also divine gifts. On no account should they be belittled, ignored or rejected, they should be adjusted and balanced, and this is achieved, raising the thought to the divine being and its truth, whenever necessary. Excesses, emotionality and sensualism, are regulated by the soul. We cannot, with our weak will, repress, restrain and frustrate our emotions, and deny them and our senses, without appealing to the truth of the divine being. It is to atrophy and even destroy them, it is to kill the soul or to wound and sicken it. When this happens, the human being is regressed to the animal plane, or spends several lives trying to recover them. There are sects that teach that, to be able to make contact with God, it is necessary to prepare oneself, to adopt complicated positions, and to focus the mind in some place of the body, like the space between the eyebrows, or the base of the spine. And then pronounce a magic word. All this belongs to the astral plane, and manages to communicate the being, only with the psychic forces of the astral plane. What you are thinking about is the position of the body, the space between the eyebrows, the base of the spine. They are not thinking of God, they are not making contact with the divine being. The Bible says that God is present, and this must be taken seriously, and just as it sounds. God is in everything, everywhere, He is present in you and everything around you. You don't have to look for Him, like you look for a needle falling to the ground. Psalm 46 says, "Cease, and know that I am God." And that is all you have to do, know what is present, and think of Him. You contact God by thinking about Him, nothing else, practicing the presence of God, that's how you get to see Him, feel Him and get close to Him. Just like practicing on the piano, you become a virtuoso. Ghosts and apparitions, which are seen in very old houses, are the astral bodies of people who lived there, evicted from their physical bodies. Their minds continue to live in the past, and they cannot detach themselves from it. They are not aware that they see them, they live the life they lived in the house, as it was when they were among humans, with all their concepts intact. There are 7 planes or states of consciousness, and each plane comprises 7 subplanes. Man advances from one to another with each expansion of his consciousness. The mental plane is the state of consciousness superior to the astral plane. Then follows the spiritual plane, which is the highest that we can conceptualize. We know many of the ascents, which are acquired on this plane, but for our purpose, it is not useful to list them here. We are studying the mental and spiritual plane, that is to say, the laws that govern to achieve them right here, on earth. Today, yesterday died, tomorrow is not yet born. We can only count on today. We cannot bring the future to the present, we have to wait to live it. For that, we have to live today to the fullest and in the best way, and thus prepare for tomorrow. We have to be conscious of today, live today and enjoy it, tomorrow, forget it. Many people live mourning the past, thinking disconsolately about something that has already died. Jesus said, "Let the dead bury the dead, follow me, the life and the truth." Today contains all the potential opportunities, it is a clean new leaf, and if you start the day expecting pleasant surprises will fall. Think of the good and it will be given to you. Always looking back, not only are you unaware of the good that lies ahead, but you bring all the bad from the past into the present. Just as one who insists on staying in a dark and smelly room, having next to him an airy and sunny room. This lesson is presented in the Bible, in the case of Lot's wife, who was told by the angels, to escape to the mountain, the spiritual plane, and not to look back because she would be consumed. She did not heed, she looked towards the city she was leaving behind, and became a sack of salt. Salt in the Bible is a symbol of crystallization, and you know what crystallization means in the subconscious, what it costs to dissolve it. He who lives in the past, it crystallizes in his subconscious, and he does not advance a single step, he stops, and the future does not offer him anything, the past repeats itself in a constant wheel. The figure of the sack or statue of salt is very appropriate, for the very fact that the past, if it can be brought to the present, is that it is recommended to give thanks for any treatment, as if it had already been manifested. Treatment should always be done in the present, it should be expected for today. It does not work when it is thrown into the future has not yet been created in earthly terms. God lives in an eternal present, this means that one must live only for today. Foresight is positive, common sense expresses divine wisdom on earth, but one should not live in the past, nor fear the future. Emerson said, "There is nothing to fear but fear." Today always brings everything he will need. Today's expenses are always covered, and monetary anxieties are always for something future, never for the past, nor for the immediate present. If you find yourself in a money predicament, it is because you anticipated that circumstance in the past, motivated by your concept. Raise your thoughts to the divine being with love, unload your weight on it, and you will see the problem miraculously solved. Don't forget to give thanks, before and after. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest, for my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." And in the Old Testament the same truth is expressed, and it says, "Cast your burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain you." Never let the righteous be moved. You will see that this differs greatly from the idea that still prevails, that the will of God is testing, sacrifice, punishment and resignation. When the Bible speaks of righteousness and justice, it always refers to the justice of thinking, to the accuracy with which the truth is focused, in thought. Seek ye the kingdom of God and his righteousness, means to seek the spiritual plane, and the laws that govern it. In today's language, think good, and it shall be given to you. Remember the divine being, and he will provide. Know the truth and it will set you free, Jesus said. The terms, the truth, God, the divine being, the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven, are interchangeable, they mean the same thing, idols. The very first words of Jehovah, in what they call the 10 Commandments, were the following, "I am Jehovah your God, you shall have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water, or that is under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor worship them." The Jews interpreted it, in the sense of not placing statues in their synagogues. Today we see the truth behind the symbol, not to fabricate mental images, which then become things outside, on earth, in the waters, in the heavens and under the earth. That is, in the material, as these become idols, gods who, according to our concept, have power above God. It is not remembered, that the substance we use to make these images, is the substance of God, and that the product cannot be more powerful, than the creator of it. Idols, or false gods or fear, the inevitable, fate, destiny, evil, bad luck, good luck, microbe, virus, disease, danger. Human frailty, human wickedness, human evil, jealousy, betrayal, accidents, death, struggle, money, and all that we have to endure, and without which you cannot live. The list is much longer, but what has been said is enough to establish the idea. Everything we fear is an idol, we are worshipping it by fearing it, worshipping it above God. An example of the way in which preference is given to God is the following. I knew a boy who was deathly ill. His relatives informed me that everything had been done, absolutely everything to save him, but he was hopeless, by all the most eminent doctors. I asked them, "Are you Catholics?" They answered me, "Of course, and very devout." Then I suggested, "Why don't you ask God?" They replied, "That's the only thing we still have to do, but there is no hope anymore." I insisted, "But nothing is impossible for God." They repeated impatiently, "But haven't we told you that he is hopeless, by 4 medical luminaries? Why insist?" In other words, the medical luminaries must have decreed, and God Almighty had to bow his head before the superior wisdom of 4 human ants. The poor people did not know that they had already decreed the death of the sick boy, before consulting the medical luminaries, and they were already thinking that they would consider him dead. Death is of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, or of the knowledge of good and evil. Thou shalt not eat of it, for if thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Genesis, chapter 2. It is the first mention of death, in the text left by Moses. God warned that death would come, if the fruit of the tree of knowledge, of good and evil, was eaten. First of all, in the Bible and in metaphysics, eating is the symbol of thinking, that is, when one eats, the food is appropriated, chewed, swallowed and assimilated. The same thing happens when you think. In the way I described at the beginning of this book, you receive an idea, food, you think about it in a determined way, you chew it, it passes to the subconscious, you swallow it, and becomes part of the individual, you assimilate it. The fruit of this process should not be eaten in the digestive process. Only very young children, it occurs to them to eat excrement. The fruit of the mental process is the external manifestation, that is, the circumstances and experiences produced by the images we have in the subconscious. This is the fruit, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is not a tree that exists somewhere, it is a symbolic figure, which describes exactly the mental process, and the laws that govern it. As we have the knowledge of the laws of creation, already exposed in previous chapters, we are the tree that produces the fruit of that knowledge. We are warned in the text of Moses, not to eat the fruit that we produce. That is, not to judge by what we see produced on the outside, not to form misconceptions based on what we see happening. Because what happens is nothing but the fruit of our inner knowledge, either a knowledge or concept based on good, or a knowledge or concept based on evil. Again, let us not form an opinion based on what we see, for this would be eating the fruit. Let us consult with the divine being, and he, the truth, will always direct us in a straight line. Such an explanation, for example, is unintelligible to those who do not possess highly scholarly knowledge, and even the scholars miss the key. This is because they are saturated with images, based on intellectual knowledge. Intellectual knowledge behaves like a tyrant, which does not allow to advance or to raise the head. Spiritual ideas in the Bible refer to the spiritual idea as a child, because it is pure and knows no evil. Those who are full of erudition consider this to be only childish. The last link in the chain, which starts with the first wrong thought, is death. Let us imagine a rope with a knot in the middle. To the right of the knot, the rope reaches its end, and has loosened and widened. On the other hand, to the left of the knot, the rope continues without us being able to see its end. In this analogy, an ant is standing in the middle of the knot, watching where it is going. Finally, it decides to take the rope to the right, because it sees that it is wider and more comfortable. When it reaches the end, it will fall into space. If it chooses the rope on the left, even though it is narrower, it will soon adjust itself, and will remain firm and secure forever. This is the picture of what happens when you choose between thinking negatively or thinking positively. The negative way seems the more comfortable way, and it ends soon. The positive path is the small door, and the narrow path that leads to life, although few find it. The original sin is the decision that was made in a knot. Death is inevitable in the negative path, it is a natural result of that path. But nothing prevents us from returning. We do not have to die, we solve it. Jesus said that death would be the last enemy we would overcome, he promised. The great advanced ones do not die, they only transcend. Moses transcended, Elijah transcended, Jesus did not die. The Holy Scriptures do not say he died, they say he gave up the spirit, which in metaphysical lexicon, means something very different. It is equivalent to projecting the astral body, the soul out of the physical body. In surgical operations, doctors fill the physical body with ether, chloroform or other substances, of the same consistency of the astral body. The astral body is then removed, because the analogous substances no longer leave room for it in the body. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands, of cases in which the operated persons say, being asleep, I saw myself standing next to my body, and I have seen the whole process of the operation. The astral body is attached to the physical body by means of a thread of the same astral substance. When the astral body separates from the physical body, they continue to be connected by this thread, which is elastic and can extend over great distances. The Bible calls it the silver cord, because it has a somewhat luminous grayish color. As the operated patient eliminates the substance that has made him unconscious, the astral body occupies the physical body again. The astral body is the one that feels and is conscious. When it leaves the physical body, it stops feeling and being conscious. When the human being dies, the cord has been broken, the two bodies are separated, and the astral body continues to live. At the moment, when Jesus exclaimed from the cross, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" He projected his astral body, and ceased to feel anything else. His appearance was as if he were dead, or in a state of deep faintness. After his body was placed in the mausoleum, provided by Joseph of Arimathea, his astral body was reunited again with his physical body. Then the women of Jerusalem went to look for the body of Jesus, and a character that the church calls an angel made them the remark, "And why do you seek him among the dead? Seek him among the living." More clear cannot be said, he was alive. Then he transcended, but for the adulteration made in the documents, it was convenient to put that he had risen, as if a being of such a high vibratory frequency could never die. As you clean your subconsciousness of the negative images, the cells of your body are transformed, becoming positive and, as it were, returning you to the goal of life. When you have finished learning the lesson that you have to learn in this life that you are living, you will not die in the current sense of the word. You will pass to the other plane without discomfort, without having had a disease. You will simply go one night, in the middle of sleep. In the saints of the Catholic Church, it is worthy of admiration, the will to reach the perfection that drove them. However, due to their ignorance of the science of good and evil, they inflicted terrible tortures on themselves, which were not only unnecessary, but also constituted an unforgivable offense towards their own bodies. The body, in itself, is the temple of the divine being, and as such, we have the obligation to take care of it. The extreme degree of negative force, which represents the whipping and voluntary tortures, produce such a state of acidity, that the poor body cannot stand it, and breaks into sores. It was for that reason, that so many saints died, having reached the last stage of tuberculosis. This is called serving God. The more people learn the laws of creation, the more the dark masses of error, which penetrate the planet, will dissolve. The false images in the subconscious will disappear, the human cell will be reconstructed, and the number of people who die will decrease. Death will be the last enemy to be defeated, and the return to the path of life has already begun. It seems that in the next millennium, the truth will be universally known. Einstein argued that when the human cell is transformed into electrical energy, men will know their own equation, and will be able to disintegrate and reintegrate their bodies at will. Then, when the being leaves his physical body, what we know as death, and enters the plane that follows, what will surprise him most, will be to see that everything he thinks, will manifest instantly before his eyes. In that state, your thoughts will become reality immediately. For there being no inert matter to retard the process, the object or condition will appear simultaneously as you think it. This will cause a confusion that could be chaotic, leading him to believe that he is really in purgatory or hell, because the terror will aggravate the condition. But family and friends will always be waiting for him, to guide him, and explain to him the conditions of the plane and reincarnation. And why don't we remember anything of what we were in previous lives? The students of truth always ask. How good it is so. How great is the love of God, and His wise laws. First of all, if I were to ask you now, what you did last Tuesday, unless it was an important date for you, you would answer me, I don't remember. I would have to rethink it. You would waste your time rethinking something as useless, superfluous, and unprofitable as bringing the past into the present. What would you gain by reliving those past days? Nothing. You would probably relive something unpleasant, because there is always something unpleasant in the past. You have been a criminal, a prisoner, a woman of life, a slave, and so on. If you could remember those dead times, you would feel again how unhappy you were. If you could remember the time when you were queen or king, you would have a very bad time, witnessing the injustices and the clumsiness you committed. Your soul today could not bear it. I'll tell you what it feels like to go back in your mind to such a remote past. It is as if you were freshly bathed, polished and perfumed, and you were forced to get into a mud full of filth, in which you could not move, to get your head out and breathe. If any of your past lives was very splendid and gifted, when you return to your present state you will feel very bad, very dissatisfied, and you will notice that this life is inferior to that one in material advantages. Life is a school, and each life is a degree more advanced than the last. If a life is full and the one that follows it is poor, it is because something was wasted or not taken advantage of, and it must be done again. The love of God knows no hell, no one is condemned eternally. Everything has forgiveness, we all have a chance, and up to 70 times 7, as Jesus said. Karma is the law of cause and effect, chance does not exist. Everything has a cause, every cause has an effect. There is good karma and bad karma, you know them. It is the debt we incur for the bad, and the collection for the good. The divine being is the Lord of karma. In its essence, it is not subject to karma, which means, it is possible to eliminate a negative karma, by directing our attention towards the divine being, and habituating ourselves to reside in its abode. This is also mentioned in Psalm 91, when the human being acquires what is called spiritual consciousness, which is to be aware of complying with the laws that have already been exposed. In this state, we are not under material laws, but under grace, and we have the right to invoke the higher laws. Many of the karmic effects are automatically dissolved by the effect that the individual often elevates his thought. He himself does not realize his privilege, but when he compares what happens to others, and which is avoided to him. At that moment he is astonished, and it occurs to him that he is protected by an invisible presence. Reincarnations cease when the individual has developed love for all without distinction, when he knows how to put himself in the place of the other, and understand the reason that impels him to act as he does. When he feels that he has nothing to forgive, because whatever has been done to him is simply a natural reaction of a lower level of evolution. Then that individual has nothing more to learn, and does not have to return to this plane. The goal is love. Those who have been enemies in one life are often born mother and child in the next life, in order to force them to love each other. Nature always seeks to unite through love, to heal and reform through love. Psalm 91 says, "He who dwells in the retreat of the Most High, will dwell securely under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in him I will trust." This last is the affirmation that produces the conditions listed in the psalm, because he will make you escape from the snare of the fowler, and from the pestilence of the pestilence. With his feathers he will cover you, and under his wings you will take refuge. His truth is like a shield and a buckler. Thou shalt not fear the night terrors, nor the arrows that fly by day, nor the diseases that lurk in the darkness, nor the mortality that lurks at noon. Try to understand the symbols that hide these promises. Though 1,000 fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, thou shalt be safe in their care. Thou shalt not be touched, only with thine eyes shalt thou behold the reward of the wicked. Therefore, thou hast said, O Jehovah, thou art my refuge. O, that thou hast made affirmation thy standard, and hast made the Most High thy habitation, because in all inquiries of the divine being, no evil shall befall thee, neither shall any plague touch thy dwelling place. For he will give his angels charge over thee, to guard thee in all thy ways. On the palms of his hands they shall bear thee up, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. That is, that thou mayest not have the least inconvenience. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and the cobra, thou shalt tread upon the young lion and the serpent, because he hath set his love upon me, I also will deliver him. I will set him on high because he has known my name. The name is the biblical language of the nature of truth. He will call to me and I will answer him, I will be with him in trouble, I will deliver him and glorify him. I will fill him with long life, and show him my salvation. The law of cause and effect is the sixth law of creation. Every effect has a cause, every cause has a reaction. Chance does not exist, luck does not exist. The Bible says that love covers a multitude of sins. To Magdalena were discounted amounts of karmic effects because, according to Jesus, she had loved a lot. The seventh law of creation is the principle of generation, which I have already explained to you. In everything there is the masculine and the feminine, necessary to create. All the laws are intertwined, and they tie back to the principle of mentalism, with which we began this book. Generation manifests on all planes, on each in a higher form, but the principle is the same. The sign of Aquarius. Jesus mentioned this world and the other world a lot. He also announced many changes for the end of the world. Once the apostles were asked and the end of the world he was predicting would come, and Jesus answered, "When you see the man in the jar of water." We do not know if the apostles understood the allusion, but for this generation it is very clear. Everyone knows that the zodiac establishes the precession of the equinoxes, or in simpler words, it is a circle in the stellar firmament, composed of groups of stars. Each group has a name according to astrology, and each month of the year is ruled by one of the groups of stars, or signs of the zodiac. There are 12 signs, one for each month of the year. Each sign is accompanied by what they call a ruler, which would determine the nature of the sign. But the zodiac has a much deeper meaning. Let's say that outside the little circle, which closes the 12 months of a year, there is a circle much, much larger. It is so large that it occupies the space for approximately 2,160 years, which corresponds to a sign of the zodiac. That is, each sign, with its ruler, governs humanity for 2 millennia and more. At the end of each of these eras, the sign that has prevailed, begins to fade or move away, and simultaneously, begins to make itself felt the influence of the next sign, and the characteristics of the new ruler. What this implies is that the sign is, as it were, the order of the day for all mankind, in these 2 millennia, and it can be read perfectly well. The sign that has just passed is the sign of Pisces, and began to move away at the end of the last century, but throughout the era in which he acted, humanity was influenced by the fish. As a basis, Jesus was called by Christians, the fish. They even adopted a drawing of a fish as a key to indicate where they were going to meet. That was the time of persecution. The Catholic religion, which prevailed during the past 2 millennia, unconsciously showed the shape of the fish on the bishop's mitre, fish head with open mouth. As well as in the Gothic form of the entrances to the churches, and in many other features. The human mood became tearful, water from the sea, and enjoyed suffering. Novels were moving dramas, melodrama prevailed in everything. Everything was heavy as the volume of the sea, and it was the time of the great sea voyages. Water has 2 phases, like everything, and they are negative, because it rots everything that is in contact with it too long, and positive, because in it is born life, and contains the amount of potentialities. The color of that sign was black, negative towards the end of the era. When approaching the sign of Aquarius, in which we are, there was the reaction they call crisis, as when a disease makes crisis, and all the symptoms are aggravated, just before getting better. The submarine was also invented, that is, the boat went down to the depths of the sea, accentuating even more the resemblance to a fish, even in the silver color. As the age of Aquarius, which is an aerial sign, entered more fully, the submarine grew wings and became an airplane, but always silver. The character of Aquarius is that of the gardener, represents a man with a pitcher of water on his shoulder. He always helps to water, but in reasonable quantity. The celestial gardener, he will cultivate his garden so that the plants give flowers, and so that humanity is perfected. The sign bears 2 irregular lines at the feet of the gardener, which signify new currents of thought, electric currents, new changes in the air, and so on. Electricity was discovered at the end of the century, and gradually invaded our lives, until we live in it and by it, next to it and surrounded by it. We are opening new routes in the sky. Already electricity graduated with the title of electronics, the element that will finish transforming everything, in a new and different era, in uranium, called as its ruler, Uranus. The signs alternate, one is positive, the next negative. Aquarius is positive, for this era is predicted the union of religions with science. There will not be a religion that prevails, as the Catholic religion prevailed in the past era. All will be united in one truth. Each change of sign brings great changes, in the planet and in the mind. The new sign acts as a purge, revolutionizing everything old, in order to clear the ground for the selection brought by the new sign. The color of this sign is white, it is the spiritual age, and in the history of mankind, it will be the greatest that has ever reigned. The signs we are seeing, so alarming, so disturbing, mean nothing but that Uranus, called the Destroyer, it is carrying out its cleansing by force. Destruction is very good when it breaks up all that is bad and old, to make way for the new and beautiful. That is what Uranus is doing, bless him. In the era of the biblical patriarchs, they distinguished themselves by shepherding. It was the sign Aries, the goat. The era of the Egyptians, the sign Taurus, was influenced by the bull, they were cattle breeders and worshipped the bull. In this new era, there will be no more top leaders. The gurus, the emperors, the great masters, etc., will disappear. Everyone will water his own garden, led by the divine being, the Messiah, the anointed Christ. Warning, keep this book in mind. Do not think that by reading it only once, you will be able to absorb all that it contains. Read it again, and you will see that what you find is new, more logical, and more interesting. This will happen every time you read it again, because the truth is a vital force that stirs dormant cells. As you begin to apply the laws you learn here, you may experience demonstrations that seem miraculous. Enthusiasm will lead you to want to share your new knowledge, but it is important to avoid trying to convince others of the truth. You may be surprised to find that some people whom you considered receptive may become less sympathetic to you. As an occult maxim says, when the disciple is ready, the master appears. If someone asks you for advice, teach them with love. If you ask the divine being to speak through you, you will know what words to share. Noblesse oblige, as another maxim mentions, and those who learn the higher laws, have the responsibility to use them correctly, more than those who do not know them. Never try to excel at the expense of others, just because you possess this knowledge. He who believes himself, with the authority to use his knowledge, to the detriment of others, or who because of his superior knowledge, considers himself exempt from following the common rules of good manners. He will face punishments, sometimes extremely severe, when attempting to circumvent the laws.
As you conclude this transformative journey through the pages of Think Good Things and It Will Be Given to You, may the seeds of positivity and manifestation planted within your mind blossom into a reality filled with abundance, joy, and fulfillment. Remember, the power to shape your destiny lies within your thoughts. Keep thinking good things, and watch as the universe aligns to fulfill your deepest desires. Farewell, and may your journey ahead be illuminated by the light of positivity and boundless possibility.